Opening prayer for today's class is on page 228 of this book, The Universal Prayers. The second one on page 228. This is a prayer to Saraswati, the goddess of learning. It is only by her grace that we can get any knowledge, both secular and spiritual. So this hymn was created by Brahma, it says. Saraswati Stotram. Let us chant that one. Hrim 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 Jata Pushchapatushte Imorichimukute Vallaki Vyagrahaste Matar Matar Namaste Daga Daga Jadatam De Buddhim Prashantam Vidye Vedanta Vedye Purinata Patite Mokshade Mukti Marge Margatita Sarupe Bhavamam Varada Sharade Shubhrahare. O Mother, you are knowledge supreme. You are known through the highest revelation, and your glory is recited by the perfect ones. You are the giver of salvation. You are the way to salvation, but you yet transcend it. Be propitious unto me. O Goddess of learning, be pleased to remove my dullness and endow me with a keen and tranquil understanding. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace be within us all, peace and harmony everywhere among us, and peace in nature. It's a very beautiful hymn praying to the goddess of learning, Saraswati, for knowledge, tranquility, and sharpness, removing the dullness. Most of the time, at least from my own experience, I can say mind is dull, not as sharp as it should be. For great personalities like Swami Vivekananda, his mind was very sharp. No dullness, no trace of dullness at any moment at all. You see, in the World Parliament of Religions, he had to give a talk. He had never spoken in public until then. We are not prepared for a speech. And he didn't have any notes. And 7,000 people are there wanting to hear him. He stood up and the torrent of words flowed. Like that. That is the sharpness. So we are nowhere near that one. So we should pray to Goddess Saraswati to give us sharpness of mind, keen understanding of everything, and we also should know how to realize God. That knowledge, Paravidya, also we request from Goddess Saraswati. Today we begin chapter 12, which is Bhakti Yoga. The topic here changes from the previous topics. In the earlier and previous chapters, in the earlier chapters from 2nd chapter until 10th chapter, Bhagavan Sri Krishna was talking about ultimate reality, Brahman, Akshara Brahma Paramam, in chapter 8, Avyakta, unmanifest, all those things. Although there was bhakti in between a little bit. But in this chapter, the whole chapter is on only bhakti. But one thing we have to note before we begin the text, study of the text, that the devotion that Bhagavan Sri Krishna describes here in the second part of the chapter, verse 13 to 20. 13 to 20 is the second part, 1 to 12 is the first part. In the second part, he talks about devotion. What are the qualities of a devotee of God? Those qualities are almost same as Sthita Prajna's qualities which we studied in the second chapter. You remember, we studied second chapter, verses 55 to 72. In response to Arjuna's question about the qualities and signs, traits of a Sthita Prajna, Bhagavan gives a long list of virtues that a Sthita Prajna has. Sthita Prajna means one whose mind is established in God always. Sthita means established, firm. Prajna means consciousness. Not thinking about world, affected by world or anything. The qualities of a devotee, Sri Krishna is going to describe in this 12th chapter, are almost same as qualities of a devotee, qualities of a Prajna described in the second chapter. Second chapter is called Sankhya Yoga, the path of knowledge. But this quality that Sri Krishna is going to describe in the 12th chapter are not much similar to Narada's description of devotee. Many of you have studied Narada Bhakti Sutras. There, Narada describes qualities of a devotee. Those qualities are different from what Sri Krishna is going to describe in the 12th chapter of the Gita. Both are devotees, but here the emphasis is on devotion to the impersonal aspect of God. Nirguna Nirakara Upasana. Upasana means worship. In the Narada Bhakti Sutra, the emphasis is on devotion to personal God. Some qualities are same, identical, some are different. That's something we have to keep in mind in this chapter. But before we do that, the first part of 12th chapter, or from beginning from verse 1 until 12th verse, that is that deals with the two paths that we have available to God. One path is worshipping God with form, with qualities, which most of us are familiar with that one. Personal God can have an infinite number of forms. We choose our form, which we like to worship. People are devotees of Rama, devotees of Krishna, devotees of Shiva, Vishnu, and devotees of Sri Ramakrishna. We all choose devotees of personal God, generally speaking. Although many are there who pursue the path of inquiry. Who am I? Those people are also there. That is one path. Second path is what we call Jnana Marga, path of knowledge, described in the Upanishads. In the Upanishads, there is not any description of bhakti or bhakti yoga or qualities of a bhakta. It's all about Brahman, Aham Brahmasmi, Tattvamasi, I am Atma Brahma, all those Mahavakyas, Prajnanam Brahma. Everything centers around Brahman, the ultimate reality. And Upanishad says, we are all that. Every one of us said, there is no other thing besides Brahman. Though we may think in our minds, I am a separate person, I am this body, I am this mind, that's ignorance. True knowledge is knowledge of the self, one's divine nature. That is Upanishad, that is the path of knowledge, what we call. That is one way to worship, to realize, try to realize Brahman, our true nature, through the path of inquiry, described in the Upanishad. That is one method. Another way is very common, familiar to us, the path of worshiping personal God. So the chapter begins with a question by Arjuna. Arjuna said there are two ways of worshipping you in personal form, devotion to personal God, or worshipping you within a formless, attributeless reality. Among these two people who worship you in these two different ways, who is the better yogi? That was the question. And from verse number 2 until 12, the answer is given. So let us begin with the first sloka. Arjuna uvacha evam satata yuktaye bhaktasvam paryupasate echapyaksharam avyaktam tesham ke yoga uttama. Arjuna asks a question at the beginning of this chapter. Evam means in this way. In this way means in what way? There must be some precedence when he said this or thus. How? The precedence, the reason why he used for evam is referring to the last verse of the previous chapter. Usually, the last verse of the previous chapter lays the foundation for the following chapter. Same thing happens here in Gita. 11th chapter, verse number 55. We studied that in quite some detail. As described in that last verse. Evam means as described in verse number 55 of the previous chapter, chapter 11. What did Sri Krishna say there in the last chapter, in the 11th chapter, last verse, Sri Krishna gave 5 instructions. Please remember, this verse very key, important verse. In the whole of Gita, 11:55 is a very important verse. There Bhagavan says, description or what a devotee should do to realize God. 5 things a devotee should do. These you are familiar with that one. Mat karma krit, performing all work for me, dedicating all work to me. Mat paramaha, making God the supreme goal of life. And then Mad Bhaktaha, being devoted to God. Sangha Varjitaha, free from attachment to all the worldly things, relationships, possessions, work, etc. Then last one is Sarva Bhuteshu Nirvairaha, no trace of any hatred towards any being, even wicked beings, no trace of hatred. These 5 things, if a person practices, that person, what happens to him or her? Saha mam eti, that person reaches me. That is the path of devotion that Sri Krishna described in the previous chapter, last verse. Referring to that, those 5 things, evam, in this way, as mentioned before, satata yukta, those who worship you, tvam pariyapasate. Pariyapasana means worshipping in every way. Evam satata yukta. Satata yukta means with uninterrupted commitment, not sporadically. Sometimes people get some devotional fervor, and for some days they worship God, and then after some time they forget all of do something else. Not like that. Satata yukta means steadfast devotion to God. Nothing interrupts that one. You may do all the required work, duties, some secular duties, some family job, everything we can. In spite of all of that, in the midst of all of that, there's constant recollection of God, dedicating all actions to God, doing all actions as worship. Evam satadayukta, ye bhakta, those devotees, tvam pariyapasate, worship you, as described in 11:55. 1. Second is ye chapi aksharam avyaktam pariyapasate. Those who ye chapi, those also who aksharam avyaktam. Aksharam means supreme reality Brahman. We saw that in the chapter 8, verse number 3. In the chapter 8, aksharam is defined by Bhagavan Sri Krishna in the 3rd verse. Because Arjuna asked same thing. Arjuna begins the 8th chapter with 7 questions in 2 slokas. First question of Arjuna was in 8th chapter, Kim Tad Brahma, what is Brahman? Most important question Arjuna is asking there. And in 3rd verse of chapter 8, at the beginning, Sri Krishna says, Aksharam Brahma Paramam. Brahman is imperishable, and other qualities he describes in the later in the chapter 8. Aksharam Brahma Paramam. So those who worship the Aksharam, Avyakta means unmanifest. Unmanifest also comes in the 8th chapter. Unmanifest means not visible to the mind and sense organs. No qualities, no name, no form. pure consciousness. This has no qualities. You cannot say pure consciousness is kind or merciful. That's only to personal God, those qualities apply, not to Brahman. So those who worship you as Brahman, as Aksharam, imperishable, objectum, and manifest reality, Tesham, of those two people, Ke Yoga Vittamaha, who are the best movers of Brahman. First is people worshipping personal God, first line. That's described in the 1155 sloka. Second line is those who worship God without form, attributeless reality. No form, no name, no attribute. Those who worship you in that way, among these two categories of devotees, Tesham, Yoga Vittamaha Ke. Yoga Vit means one who knows yoga. Yoga means path of reaching God. Who knows best? Who is the best seeker? Yoga Vit means one who knows yoga. Brahma Vit, Yoga Vit, Shastra Vit, one who knows something. Tamaha means its superlative degree. In Sanskrit, there are, like in other languages, comparative degree, superlative degree. That means Tara means better. Tama means best. So whenever you see the suffix Tama, that means best, describing some quality. Tesham, of these two categories of devotees, Ke Yoga Vittamaha, who knows yoga best? Who are the best yogis? Who are the best devotees? So that was Arjuna's question. Simply put, Arjuna's question was, some people worship personal God, some people worship impersonal reality, meditate on Brahman. Among these, who is better? That's it. That's the essence of the question, Arjuna's question. Now, the rest of it is until shloka number 7, the Sri Krishna's answer follows. So we go to verse number 2. Sri Bhagavan Vacha Maya Vyeshya Mano Ye Mam Nitya Yukta Upasate Shraddhaya Parayo Peta Te Me Yukta Tama Mata. Sri Bhagavan Vacha, the Lord said, Mayi Manaha Aveshya. Aveshya means samadhaya. That means concentrating one's mind on me. Me here means personal God. Concentrating their minds on me, Mayi Mana Aveshya, fixing their mind on me, the Lord is saying, Ye Upasate Nitya Yukta Mam Upasate. Those who worship me, Upasate means those who worship me. How? Nitya Yukta. Nitya Yukta means without interruption, steadfast, all the time, ever integrated. Yukta means combined with God. Our mind is always with God. Body and organs will be doing some work, but mind is kept on God. How to do both of these? How to keep the mind on God and at the same time do our work? That is a good question. This is been illustrated in the life of great people. Swami Brahmananda said, you are 25, with 25% of your mind, you can do all the work, job, family, everything. 75% of your mind you should keep on God. That is difficult for most of us. Simpler way is to perform all the work as worship. If the work is if the work requires total concentration, you can't think about God during the work, then before and after, before beginning such a work, during which you cannot think about God, say a prayer. Few seconds only it takes. Oh Lord, I am going to do this work. I won't be able to think about you during this work. And please accept it as my humble offering, as my worship. And please give me the wisdom and strength to do this work in the best interest of all. I'm not seeking name or glory for this work. I'm doing it as offering as service, as a servant. Dasa, Gritya Eva. After finishing that work, however long it may take, during which you could not think about God, you take another few seconds and say to the Lord, "O Lord, I have done this work to the best of my ability. May good happen to all from this work, by this work. I'm not seeking any glory or name for this work. It is offered to you as my humble offering, as my worship." So before and after. But certain types of work are allow you to think about God also. For example, you are folding a laundry, vacuuming the floor. Then also you should keep the thought of mind on God. I'm doing this as offering to God, worship of God. Connect all work to God as offering. That Sri Krishna says that many places in the Gita, offer whatever you do, offer it to me. So by doing that, we can remain in constant communion with God. That's called Satata Yukta. Those people who worship me, by keeping their mind on me all the time. Satata Yukta, Ye Mam Upasate, those who worship me, keeping their mind on me. Mayi Manaha Aveshya. And then Shraddhaya Paraya Upetaha. Para means supreme. Paraya Shraddhaya means the supreme faith in God. No trace of doubt about the existence of God and our devotion to God. There is no wavering there. Unwavering devotion to God. Shraddhaya Paraya Upetaha, endowed with supreme faith. Ye Yuktatama Mata. Those people, they are Yuktatamaha. They are the best devotees. Yuktatamaha means I deem the best integrated. I deem them the best integrated means combined with God. That means, to summarize verse number 2, those who keep their minds on me constantly, though engaged in worldly activities, those who are ever steadfastly devoted to me, Nitya Yukta, those who worship me with supreme faith, Saddhaya Paraya Upeta, supreme faith, I consider them to be the best devotees of mine. Me Yuktatamaha Me Mata. Yuktatama Mata. My opinion is that they are my best devotees. This describes those who worship God with form. Generally, we can take like that. Although it is common to Jnanis also. Those who follow the path of Jnana also can have to keep their mind always fixed on God. But it is here, in a way, description of those who worship God with form, personal God, devotees of God, path of devotion, those who follow. Now, in the next two verses, 3 and 4, Bhagavan Sri Krishna describes those who worship God without form. Those who worship God, the unmanifest aspect of God, without attributes, without name, without qualities. They also are equally dear to me, he says. There is no distinction from God's point of view. Whether somebody worships him as impersonal reality Brahman, or somebody worships him as Rama or Krishna or Shiva or whatever, to God they are all the same. They are all worshipping the same reality. Actual reality is one. With form, without form, they are same. This Sri Ramakrishna made very clear in the Gospel. God with form is same as God without form. No need for discussion and disagreement. You may worship, you may choose to worship God with form, any form you like, or you may choose to worship God without form, without attributes, as impersonal reality. Either way, the same, we are worshipping the same reality in different ways. So for God, there is no distinction between these two people. Although these two people may quarrel among themselves, I am superior because I am worshipping God without form. I follow the path of knowledge superior to path of bhakti karma. This among the people there is disagreement. There's going to be, because human mind is like that. From God's point of view, there is no distinction among these two kinds of devotees. In whichever way a person worships God, to God they are equally dear. There is no superior, inferior from God's point of view. Although people may say my path is better, some people are devoted to Krishna, exclusively say, though, if you worship Krishna, you will go to heaven. If you don't worship Krishna, you will not. And some other people of other faiths have the same opinion. If you accept our God, there will be salvation for you. If you don't accept our God, you will not have salvation. You will go to hell. That people think like this. Nature of human mind, find differences and consider oneself superior to others. But from the point of view of the divine of the Lord, there is no difference. All devotees of God are equally dear to him. That's what he is going to say. So in the verses 3 and 4, he is going to say that those who worship me without form, without attributes, impersonal reality, they are also equally dear to me. That's what he is going to say. So verse number 3, and we can study 3 and 4 together. Ye tvaksharamanirdesyam avyaktam paryupasate sarvatragam achintyam cha kutasthamachalam dhruvam sanniyam yendriyagramam sarvatra samabuddhayaha te prapnuvanti mameva sarvabhutahite rataha. The statement here ends with the statement, they also te api mameva prapnuvanti, they reach me alone, regardless of how they worship. It's people's choice. They may worship God in any way they like. From God's point of view, there is no difference. They're all devotees of God. Devotees, those who follow the path of bhakti, they believe all children, all are God's children. Sri Ramakrishna's disciples, Holy Mother disciples, they believe that everybody is God's child. She herself said like that one. Holy Mother Sarada Devi, everyone is my child, no one is an exception. No one is a stranger. She expected everyone, wicked people, good people, bad people, all of them, educated, uneducated. She accepted everybody as her own child. That's from God's point of view. There is no difference. Ame dveshosya na priyaha, he says later. He said earlier. To me, there is no dvesha. There is nobody whom I dislike or hate. Na priya, there is nobody whom I specially favor. They're all my children. They're all my devotees. That's from the God's point of view. So here, let us go back to verse 3 and 4. Yeto anirdeshyam avyaktam aksharam paryupasate. Akshara means Brahman. Aksharam Brahma Paramam. Chapter 8, verse 3. Supreme reality, Brahman. Formless, attributeless reality. Yeto aksharam paryupasate. Worship God without form, without attributes. Anirdeshyam. Nirdeshana means describing, pointing out the qualities of something. Anirdeshana means something that cannot be described in terms of qualities. We can describe a person by citing his or her qualities. A person is what nationality, what language he or she speaks, what kind of work he or she does, engineer, a doctor, or a lawyer, or what kind of food he eats. By citing all the qualities, we can describe a person. But using these qualities, we cannot describe God, impersonal God. Brahman has no qualities, pure consciousness. What quality can be there for pure consciousness? So that is anirdesham, indescribable. Yet vaksharam anirdeshyam avyaktam. Avyaktam means unmanifest, no name for. That we studied avyakta in the 8th chapter. God with form has a name and form. If you take, say, Durga, for example, we recently had Durga Puja. All of you probably had Durga Puja in your own centers. There, Divine Mother Durga is worshipped. So many qualities. We chanted a hymn from the 5th chapter of the Chandi, Devi Mahatmyam, describing the qualities of Durga, innumerable qualities. There are what are called Sahasranamas. Sahasranama, Vishnu Sahasranama, Lilita Sahasranama, Shiva Sahasranama, Like there's all details of 1,000 names. Sahasranama means 1,000 names. Each name describes a quality. There is no end to the qualities. It is in infinite number of qualities. All that is personal God. Here it is avyaktam, unmanifest, no qualities, no way to describe. This is not visible to the senses. Cannot see impersonal God with our eyes. We can see Rama's image in our eyes, with our eyes. We can hear Krishna's words, read in the Gita and other places. But Brahman, how to visualize him? Infinite ocean of pure consciousness everywhere. So that is avyaktam sarvatragam. Sarvatraga means everywhere present. Vyomavad vyapi. Shankara says. Vyoma means space. Just like space which is present everywhere. You can't imagine a place where there is no space. It's impossible to visualize such a thing. A place without space. So just like space which is present everywhere, Vyomavat Vyapi means all pervasive, everywhere. God is in pure consciousness, present in all and everything. All and everything is pure consciousness. Sarvam Kalavidam Brahma, Upanishad says. So that is impersonal reality. Sarvatragam Achintyam, unthinkable. If you to think about something, we need to have a quality description. If the object has if there is an object which has some quality, like for example, this book, how many pages it has, how big it is, 5 by 8 or 11 by 8 or 11. Some size is there, thickness is there, color is there, what is printed, everything. Qualities can be used to describe this book. But Brahman has no qualities. What qualities pure consciousness can have? Nothing. So that is achintyam. You can't think about Brahman. Beyond the domain of mind and speech. In the Upanishad says, in the all the prayers, God is described as somebody who cannot be captured by speech and thought about by mind. Manovacham agocharam. Achintyam kutastham. Kutastham means immobile, moving. How can a pure consciousness move? Is present everywhere. Here is the question of movement. If one object is present here and not present there, then it can move from here to there, where it is. It can go. But if something is everywhere, from where to move to where? That is kutastham, immobile. It cannot move. Kutastha means something that is present, fixed, everywhere. Sarvavyap. Achalam cannot move. Kutastham achalam, fixed and unmoving. Achalam. Dhruvam. Dhruvam means eternal. Present at all time, past, present, and future. Beyond time. Like that one. So these are all qualities of the impersonal reality that he is describing here, verse number 3. Those who worship the impersonal reality with these qualities, and then description continues in the 4th verse of the impersonal reality. Sanniyamyendriya gramam. Indriya grama means, we have seen that before. Group of indriyas, sense organs. Grama means a collection of things. Grama also means a town where people are gathered together, they live together. Grama. In Hindi, it becomes gaon. Indriya grama means all the sense organs that we have. Collection of sense organs. Sanniyamya, controlling very well. Niyama means control. Samyak niyamya, controlling very well, not sporadically or haphazardly. Controlling all their sense organs very well. Sanyamyendriya gramam. Sarvatra samabuddhayaha. Being same-sighted everywhere. Towards all experiences, towards all beings. Same-sightedness we have studied before. Samabuddhi, samadarshitva we have seen before. A jnani looks upon everybody in the same way, because he or she sees God in everyone. Brahman, everything is Brahman. Whatever object you see, person you see, because saintly Brahman. Brahman has taken all the forms of the whole universe. That is Jnani's perception. Sarvatra samabuddhaya, same-sighted towards all beings. Samabuddhi also means equanimity in relation to our own experiences, in equanimity in pain and pleasure, praise and blame, gain and loss, happiness and unhappiness. When all these things happen as they are bound to happen in everybody's life, a devotee must remain unperturbed. Sarvatra samabuddhaya. All these things is studied before. Equanimity in pain and pleasure. For example, in verse number 38, chapter 2. Sukha dukkhe same kritva labha labho jaya jayau. Like that. Sukha dukkha, labha alabha. Profit and loss, happiness and unhappiness, jaya ajaya, success, failure, praise and blame, that we have seen before many places. That is equanimity in regard to one's own experiences. That one put garlands on, another kicked his frame, say not, no praise or blame can be, where praiser praised and blame or blamed are one. Thus be thou calm, sannyasin bold, say Om, Tat Sat Om. Swamiji wrote in Song of Sannyasi. So that we have seen before. Equanimity in regard to same-sightedness in regard to all other beings, that we've seen in at least two places before, earlier chapters. Where did we see same-sightedness, samadarshitva, pandita samadarshinaha? That is chapter 5, verse number 18. There, panditas are samadarshin, same-sighted. Those who know, those who have knowledge. How are they? Vidya Vanaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavi Hastini Suni Chaiva Sapa Kecha Pandita Samadarshina. The whole spectrum of creation, from the best to the worst, from the highest to the lowest, towards all beings, animals and also included, plants included, people included, objects of nature included, we have to practice same-sightedness. How to practice same-sightedness? Seeing the same divinity in all. That will come very clearly in the next chapter. One divine present in all. Kshetra Kshetrajna, next chapter, we are going to study that in detail. One reality, one divinity present in all. Bodies and minds are innumerable, infinite, all different qualities. But at the root of all this, if you go to our spiritual nature, the in-depth, we all converge and become one reality, have many different bodies. We'll study that in the next chapter. Sarvatra sambuddhaya, te mameva, one more quality. Sarva bhuta hite rataha. Rati means enjoyment, happiness, rati. Happiness comes to these people how? Not by sensory pleasures, but by ensuring the well-being of all other beings. That's a very good quality. If other people are happy, comfortable, in that we rejoice. If somebody else is suffering, that also makes us unhappy. So these devotees, they take great delight in the well-being of all beings. Sarva bhuta hite. Hita means something that is beneficial to other beings. If others are happy, then I am happy. If others are unhappy, how can I enjoy? I cannot be happy. Because same divine is present in me and everybody else. That is the important quality of a devotee. Whether you worship God with form or without form, the Sarvabhuta Hite should be kept in mind. That came in an earlier chapter too. Sarvabhuta Hite Rataha. So, these are the qualities of a devotee who worships God without name and form. What happens to them? Te api mameva prapnavanti. Describing the qualities of a devotee who worships God without name and form, following the path of knowledge, that person or those devotees also come to me. So that is the conclusion. Whether a person A devotee worships God with form, name and attributes, worshipping personal God in any form, or whether a person meditates on the impersonal ultimate reality Brahman without name and form, both of them come to me. Goal is the same. Paths are different, goals are same. That's the main point in Vedanta, in Sri Ramakrishna's teaching. Other faiths, they have some difficulty with this one. They think that their path is the only path. Even in Hinduism, there are sects which believe like that one. The way they worship is the only way to worship God. That we should not, does not allow. Bhagavan does not say that. Bhagavan says, in whichever way a person worships me, following whichever path of his or her choice, everybody comes to me eventually. Te api mameva prapnavanti. This is the conclusion. That is the gist of the first part of this 12th chapter. Whether a person worships God with form, attributes, qualities, personal form, personal God, or a person worships the impersonal reality, meditates on Brahman, Aham Brahmasmi, etc., both of them reach the same goal. This is what Sri Ramakrishna also said. Now, both paths are available. However, there is some difficulty, especially for those who prefer to worship God without form. Worshipping God with form is easier because there is something to hold on to. You can see the form, you can chant that personal God's names and glories, Sahasranama, so many hymns are there. Thousands of hymns are there in all languages. You can describe, chant the glories of God. All we can do ritualistic worship. All of those things a person can do. The person worshipping personal God. But if a person chooses to meditate on Brahman, then it is difficult for most people. There is no quality there. There is no quality means the attributes are not there. You can't say Brahman is compassionate because it's not personal God. You cannot say Brahman grants our wishes because that is not personal God. That's pure consciousness. I am that. That is path is difficult. That Sri Krishna himself concedes that one, that difficulty. So that's in verse number 5. Verse number 5, he says, while both these paths reach the same goal, one path is a little bit more difficult than the other path. Then he says, Kleshodikatarastesham avyakta saktachetasam avyakta hi gatir dukkham dehavadbhiravapyate tesham kleshaha adhikataraha. Tesham of those people who worship the impersonal reality. Avyakta asakta chetasam. Chetas means mind, for minds are attracted to avyakta. Asakta means interested in avyakta means unmanifest reality, Brahman. Those who are interested in worshipping the unmanifest reality, Brahman, their difficulty, klesha, adhikatara is more, greater is their difficulty. Because the human mind requires some quality, some name, some form to hold up. If an entity has no form, no name, no appearance, no quality, then how to think about it? For the mind to think about something, it should be an object separate from us, and it should have some qualities. Then only we can think about it. But if the object is my own inner self, Brahmasmi Upanishad says we are all Brahman, then how to think about it? That Brahman has no qualities, pure consciousness pervading everything. I am that also. There's no name and form there. That kind of meditation worship is difficult. Many people follow that one. Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi, his main teaching, although he taught the path of bhakti and karma, mainly he taught about self-inquiry. Who am I? If you keep on inquiring who am I, rejecting all which are not I, I'm not the body, I'm not the mind, I'm not the ego, I'm not the work I do, I'm not the fruit of work, my work, I'm none of this. Then who am I? Eventually you reach the conclusion that I am that self. That's a long path and it is difficult. Easier is the path of those who worship God with fun. Ritualistic worship, chanting the names, innumerable names, chanting the glories, all this can be done. Serving can be done. So here in verse 5, he says, Avyaktahi gatir dukkham. Dukkham avapyate. With difficulty, one can reach the impersonal attributeless reality. Avyakta. Avyakta higatir dukkham dehavadbihi. We're all dehavan. Mostly, there may be some people who transcended body consciousness among us, but most of us are body conscious people. Round the clock, we are aware of the body, especially in waking state. I may say I'm Brahman, etc., but that's only book knowledge. But if you ask my experience, every moment I feel my body only aches and pain and pleasure, happiness, sometimes pleasure. So those for Dehavan, or body conscious people, which includes the majority of people, they would be by those people, Avyaktagati dukkham avapyate. With great difficulty, we can reach that goal of impersonal reality. That means, simply put, verse number 5 means the path of devotion to personal God is easier than the path of knowledge, which says I am Brahman. This is suitable for most majority of people. That's all. Conclusion of that. Then Bhagavan Shri Krishna continues the qualities of a devotee who worships impersonal reality. Description will come from verse 13 to 20, the last 8 verses of chapter 12. So let us do verse number 6. Yeta sarvani karmani mai sanyasya matparaha ananye yogena mam dhyayanta upasate. 6 and 7 also. Those who worship God with fun. Verse number 7. Teshamaham samudharta mritya samsara sagarat bhavami nasharat partha maya veshuta chetasam. Here says, those who surrender all work to me. Sarvani karmani maya samyasya. These qualities have come before. But para, those to whom I am the most important. Para means supreme, but para means God is supreme to devotees of God. Other things, they may be important, but they'll come later. For a devotion, personal pure devotion, there is no other thing, only God. The only object of life is to realize that. Worldly possession, property, name, fame, they won't care any at all. They won't even hanker for those things. Ordinary people, they want a little bit of both. For them also, God comes first. Then other things, job and family, money, name, position, this will come. They have a place in our life for majority of people. But the first place, highest place in our life is God. Matparaha. Yetu sarvani karmani maya sanyasya. Those who dedicate, offer all their work to me and make me the most important goal of life. Matparaha. Ananyenaiva yogena mam dhyayante. Ananya means with no other thought in their mind. Those who worship me, those who meditate on me, jayante, upasate, worship me. This is all description of devotees. The first line in verse number 6, Sarvani karmani mai sanyasya. That has come many times. Sometimes it is useful to go back and connect these with the earlier verses we studied before. Dedicating all actions to God, it has come many times. Verse number 30 in chapter 3, 330. There Bhagavan Krishna says, dedicating all actions to me. Sarvani karmani mahi sanyasya. The same thing comes there. Mahi sarvani karmani sanyasya adhyatma chetasa nirashir nirmamo bhutva yudhyasa vigatajvaraha. Second chapter, third chapter, verse 30. There Bhagavan says, dedicating all actions to me. Sarvani karmani mahi sanyasa. Same thing here in the sixth verse of chapter 12. Same thing is said in chapter 9, again, in verse number 27. Whatever you do, offer it to me, dedicate it to me, he said. Why we to dedicate anything to God? He doesn't need anything. Not for his benefit, to fulfill his need. For us to become detached from that work which we are doing. Whatever work we are doing, we are attached to that work generally. And we are attached to the fruit of that work. This is my work, I have done it, I want to get the benefit. That thought has to be given up. This is Lord's service, offering to God, is up to him. Whatever fruit comes by his grace, I will accept it joyfully. Success or failure, gain or loss, doesn't matter. That devotee's attitude. Mai sarvani karmani sanyasya. And then 927, yat karo shedashnasi, yajjakoshi dadasi yat, yat tapasyasi kaunteya, tat kurusha madarpanam. Do it as an offering to me. 927. Will again come in the 18th chapter, verse 57. You will study that later. So that is one quality of all devotees. Matparaha, making me the supreme goal of life. Ananyeneva yogena mam jayante. Those jayante means those who meditate on me with no other thought in their mind, no other concern in their mind. Upasate, those who worship me. And it's a continuation of the description in the 7th verse also. Verse number 7. Teshamaham samudharta mritya samsara sagarat bhavami nacharat partha maya veshita chetasam. Tesham aham. Of those people who worship me in this way, dedicating all actions to me, making me the supreme goal of life, etc. Tesham aham, the Lord says, he mrityu samsara sagarat samudharta. Mrityu means death. That means everything ends at some point. Not only people, everything will die at some, the whole nature will, all the galaxies and stars and everything will die at some time or other. Mrityu. End is definite. Samsara sagara. Samsara means the cycle of birth and death is compared to an ocean. Sagara means an ocean. The ocean of worldly existence. Why it is called the ocean? Because it is so vast and difficult to cross. Samsara sagara. O Lord, help me to cross over the ocean of worldly existence. Like this, we pray to God. Samsara sagara. Samudharta means I am going to lift them up. Uddharta means one who lifts. Uddhara means lifting up from the cycle of birth and death, from the suffering inevitable in worldly life, life after life. I lift all those devotees described in the previous verses who worship me in different ways. From the ocean of worldly existence, I will lift them up. Tesham aham samudharta. I am the lifter of those people, of devotees. Therefore, bhavami nacharat partha maya veshita chetasam. I shall soon be the deliverer from the sea of empirical life leading to death. Bhavami nacharat. Nacharat means quickly. Chara means a long time. Nacharat means very quickly. If you are devoted to God, result will come quickly in this life. Nacharat partha maya veshita chetasam. Mayi means in me. Chetas means mind. Avishita means fixed. Those whose minds are fixed in me all the time, as described before, thinking about all the time, and those who worship me in different ways, Tesham aham samudharta. I lift them up from the ocean of worldly existence. Samsara sagara samudharta. bhavami, I will become. Nasirat, quickly. There's no delay. So that is the result of worshipping God either with form and qualities or without name and qualities. Whichever we worship God, He will lift everybody. Nasirat means Kshiprameva, very soon. Doesn't take much time. But what we have to do is to constantly remain in constant touch with the Lord through all the work that we do, and to prayer, japa, meditation, other spiritual practice. One way or the other, we can vary them. We don't have to do the same thing all the time. Morning we can do japa, evening we can do japa, in between we can do work. All work is worship, offering to God. Like that, we can somehow remain in contact with God. To those devotees who worship me in different ways, I will become the lifter from the ocean of cycle of birth and death. Samudharta bhavami, I will become the lifter up. That means he will give us liberation. He will give us pure devotion. He'll give us knowledge of the self, and he will give us liberation. We eventually will become united with the Lord. Separation will go away. But some people prefer to stay separate, as in the case of Hanuman, Sri Ramakrishna. They didn't want to merge in God. Jnanis want to merge in Brahman. There's no second entity there. But devotees prefer to stay separate. I don't want to become sugar. I want to eat sugar, Sri Ramakrishna. That means they don't want to merge in divine. There's only divine. Brahman remains. There's no you, there is no me, there is no devotee, there is no God. I don't want that. I want you to be my mother. I want me to be always a 5-year-old child playing on your lap. Please grant me that much, Sri Ramakrishna said. Hanuman also said the same thing. I don't want Brahmajnana. If you read to Sri Rama, he said, if you grant me Brahmajnana, self-knowledge, there will be no Rama, no Hanuman, no master, no servant. I don't want that one. As long as I live, I want to live as Hanuman, simply enjoying, listening to the chanting of your names and glories anywhere in this world. That was Hanuman's famous prayer. So this way, so far what we have done in chapter 12 is of the two ways of worshipping God. Worshipping God with name and form, attributes, qualities, ritualistic worship, chanting names and gods, everything. Or worshipping the ultimate reality, meditating on Brahman, ultimate reality, avyakta akshara, imperishable, unmanifest reality. Of these two paths, both of them lead devotees to meet the same goal. Goal is same. However, one of them is more difficult than the others for the majority of people who are body conscious people. The path of meditating on the ultimate reality without name and form is more difficult for majority of people than the path of worshipping personal God with name and form and attributes. That is what we have studied so far in chapter 12. Next time we shall continue. Bhagavan Sri Krishna gives 4 options in the next 4 or 5 verses from verse number 8 to 12. In these verses, Bhagavan gives 4 different things we can do. Everybody doesn't have to follow the same path. See, Sri Krishna said, do this. If you cannot do it, do this one. Cannot do that one, do this one. If you cannot that one, do this one. Different choices he gives. We can follow any of those paths and reach the same goal. That's the next part of chapter 12 from verse 8 onwards. We'll study that next time when we meet next week by the grace of God. If you have questions or comments about what you have studied so far, you have a few minutes for that.
Pranam Maharaj, this is Kamal here.
Kamal.
Maharaj, I was noting down the similar sloka you mentioned, 330, 927, 12, 6, and
1857 also.
And there is one with 6 also, right, Maharaj? What was it? The 6th chapter?
There is probably one. There are several. These are the 3 I just happen to remember. In several places, Sri Krishna says, dedicate all your actions to me. It's a repeated instruction.
Okay. Thank you, Maharaj.
Same thing, he repeats certain instructions again and again, like Samadarshitva, self-centeredness, remaining equanimous in success and failure, pain and pleasure. These instructions come very often. These are important things for everybody to follow. Whichever path you follow, these things we have to practice. Same-sightedness and equanimity in pain and pleasure and all those things. These are general qualities of all devotees, no matter which path they follow.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Maharaj.
Anything else? Will we say the closing prayer? Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramayah Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, may all be happy, may all be free from suffering, may all realize and practice what is noble, auspicious and dharmic. May no one be subject to any kind of problems or suffering by the grace of God. Om, may there be peace within us all, Adhyatmika Shanti. May there be peace and harmony amongst all beings, Adi Bhautika Shanti. And may there be peace everywhere in nature, Adi Daivika Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sarvam Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Thank you all.